The demon list has been an important part of the community for years now, but at the moment, the quality of some of the hardest levels in the game is severely lacking. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing each of the levels in the top 10, starting at number 10 and working my way up, telling you why I think the level is good or bad, what it does and doesn't do well, and what I think it could have done better. I will be considering the decoration, atmosphere, and enjoyment ratings from the victors of the levels. But first, I'd like to talk about a couple of problems that I think are affecting a lot of the top extremes, now more than ever. The first problem I see is the number of remakes and sequels at the top of the demon list. Of the current top 25, more than half of them are or have a remake or sequel. This can be done well, like in Verdant Landscape, which loosely bases itself on Windy Landscape, but has plenty of original ideas, decoration, and theming. However, it can also be done very poorly, like in Sonic Wave Infinity, which completely copies the gameplay of a level which many people already find unfun and super buffs it with inconsistent, object-heavy decoration and a sprinkling of drama thrown in. Being a remake or sequel technically doesn't affect the quality of a level, but more originality makes for a more diverse range of levels on the list. The second problem for me is the huge range of old Impossible levels on the list. Geometry Dash is a game where difficulty drives much of the community, and Impossible levels have been a way of showcasing the hardest gameplay, supposedly way above the human limit, for years now. I'm all for people going and verifying old Impossible levels. They're incredible achievements which show how far the community has come, but many of them have terrible gameplay and decoration, which sparks controversy over their rate, but also makes for a less fun experience playing top levels. Recently, many formerly impossible levels have been beaten, and although many remain unrated, quite a few have ended up on the list too, and this is one of the main issues with the list today. Clearly, the demon list shouldn't take the quality of levels into account. It is after all supposed to be a showcase of the game's hardest rated levels, but it's still important to have good levels in the top 10 too. With that said, let's get started. Sonic Wave Infinity is the current number 10 demon. It's an APT mega collab and the hardest Sonic Wave remake. I'm sure many of you remember thinking this level would be top 1, then being hugely disappointed, or not, to see it placed below Tartarus. This level has not aged well in my opinion. I always used to like the level visually, but as time has gone on, I found more and more problems with different parts in the level. The whole pre-drop looks cluttered, and there are out of place details everywhere in the first wave. The second cube looks very clean, it's one of my favourite parts in the level, but it's still very simple. The second wave changes up the colour scheme to a lighter blue with more greys, which is cool, but some of the designs don't fit with the rest of the level, and there are some weird movements in the duel. The last cube has some cool art, and the last wave looks good too. As a mega collab, it has very inconsistent quality, which is why I think people should make more solo levels instead of turning everything into a mega collab. Now on to the gameplay. Of the 17 victors I could find with comprehensible enjoyment ratings, 10 of them gave it a 0 or something similar, with the average rating being 2.3. If that doesn't tell you that the level sucks, then I don't know what will. Although I like some of the decoration in SWI, I think the creators should have taken more inspiration from the legacy mode. A lot of the core decoration doesn't fit and feels too static or cluttered, and I think in places more simplicity would have made for a better level. Also, the gameplay shouldn't have been buffed just for difficulty, it should have actually been changed to make good hard gameplay instead of a super difficult bad gameplay. Overall, I give SWI a don't die to the end screen out of Infinity. Moving on. The number 9 demon is Tartarus, the level we all know for staying top 1 for way too long with no influence from Riot whatsoever. Anyway, all jokes aside, Tartarus has grown on me. The level does what it wants to as a 1.9 themed top 1. Despite being a hell level, it has some interesting designs throughout, like the ship at the drop and the whole ending of the level. However, there are empty and boring parts as well, like the whole pre-drop. This is another mega collab which tells you all you need to know about the inconsistent quality, although this issue isn't as apparent as in SWI. The level uses Clubstep as its song, but I think that works in the level's favour as it uses the song well to add to the intensity and 1.9 feel of the level. In my opinion, Tartarus isn't a perfect level, but it's good as it is. Some parts suffer from a lack of pulses, as when movements aren't being used, pulses are the main way to make a level feel alive. Some of the structuring is also pretty basic, so that could be made more interesting. Now onto the gameplay. Out of the 45 enjoyment ratings I could find, yes, I went through every Tartarus record, all 74 of them. The average was 4.4, which isn't great, but there was still a fair amount of people who gave the level high ratings. In my opinion, the gameplay could be more interesting, but it's definitely got its own personality. I give Tartarus a riot out of 10. Next up, we have Hard Machine. This level is interesting because of how old it is. Despite the level's age, it still lands itself a place in the top 10 today, which is crazy to think about. Hard Machine is very colourful in classic Necrodox fashion, but it is very similar throughout. This in combination with the slow speed, uninteresting gameplay and default song makes the level boring to watch after a while. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this level, but I appreciate it for what it is. Also, the level is kind of funny. I do quite like the huge text, so it does have that going for it. I was very surprised to find that people actually enjoyed this level, and of the 11 victors with enjoyment ratings, 8 of them gave the level a 5 or more, with the average being 6.2. I expected the level to be unfun due to the old gameplay, but I guess it does hold up to today's standards, so well done to comp on that. I would give this level a harder than ICDX out of 10. The number 7 demon is Cognition. Oh, it's Oblivion? Sorry, I couldn't tell the difference. Oblivion is very forgettable in my opinion. It takes what Cognition did. Yeah, that's it, it's the same level, it changed like nothing. I guess Oblivion has some slightly more advanced block designs and more glow, but to me, this is a classic case of sequel done badly. I know a lot of people quite like this level though, so maybe that's just me being picky. One thing I do find interesting is that if this was rated on verification instead of like a year later, it would have been top 1, although that is assuming that today's opinions would have been used, and we all know how reluctant the demon list was to place anything above Tartarus back then. The level's gameplay is very similar to Cognition, with the level being made up of corridors, which I think is a neat gimmick which could have been expanded upon more in Oblivion, with maybe some more open spaces to break up the flow. Also, some less generic decoration would have helped. The main thing the level lacks though is movement. The song is very intense, and I don't think Oblivion really does it justice. Some violent and sharp movements for the parts of the corridor entering and exiting the screen would have really brought it to life. As this level was only rated recently, there are currently only 4 records with enjoyment ratings, with the average being 5.9. However, this would be much higher if the verifier hadn't given it a 1 out of 10, stating that the level wasn't bad, it's just a bad experience verifying a hard level, so I could see this becoming one of the most loved top 10s in terms of gameplay, which is cool, because gameplay is more important than decoration in hard levels for me. I mean, obviously, I'm not good enough to beat any of levels this hard, but you know what I mean. I would give this level a please don't kill me Cognition simps out of 10. Arcturus is the next level I'm going to talk about, and this is in my opinion where the worst levels in the top 10 begin. The decoration is incredibly similar throughout and isn't very detailed. There is also around 11 seconds of black screen in the level, which does match the song but is also pretty lazy. The creators could have easily added some art or something in there. Although the decoration isn't very high quality, I actually really like the way Arcturus looks because of the unique, messy style. The movements, pulses, movement of the player on screen, and speed changes really add to the atmosphere of the level. I think if the decoration had some more detail and some more theming was incorporated, this level could really stand out, but it's quite forgettable the way it is. Some more colours would have helped too, even just different shades of red, as other colours could feel out of place, but at any given moment in Arcturus, most of the screen is black. This isn't helped by the gameplay, which is very standard ship and wave. The ship gameplay is mainly straight fly, and the wave gameplay is very simple corridors, except for the added interest of the dual first wave. One of the things I like about Arcturus is that the gameplay has actually been changed from the old Impossible level version, it hasn't just been nerfed. I think if you have to remake an old Impossible level, you should do this, as it makes the gameplay less bad, although in Arcturus it kind of failed at that, but the principle is there. Of the 14 victors with enjoyment ratings, the average is 4 out of 10. There seem to be 2 opposing groups, those who think it's not as bad as people say it is, and those who think that it is absolutely as bad as people say it is. I think it really depends on whether you like challenge-esque ship and wave gameplay. I would give this level a boring out of 10. Finally moving into the top 5, we have Firework. This is the only current top 5 that isn't a former Impossible level, and that's the reason it has more victors than the other 4 top 5s combined. Firework has a grayscale death theme, which admittedly could have been conveyed more strongly, but the decoration is solid. This level has one hell of an atmosphere on full detail, but becomes quite boring on low detail mode, which is unsurprisingly what almost every victor has beaten it on. The bright pulses and theming elements work well together to create quite a cool and unique level. Firework does a lot right. It is a mega collab, but it's the best one in the top 10. All the parts fit together coherently and build upon each other. The gameplay switches between tight corridors for the drop and more open areas for the other parts of the song, where more of the screen is used. This level also doesn't rely entirely on ship and wave and uses lots of orbs even in the wave parts to make the gameplay interesting. The speed changes help sync the level to the song, which is used very well to build up to the intense finale of the level. Cherry Team clearly knew what they were doing with this one. But let's see what the victors think. Of the 13 enjoyment ratings, the average was 6.8, which is pretty decent for a level this hard. I would give Firework a "how is this only number 5, I swear it was number 2 so recently" out of 10. At number 4, we have the newest addition to the top 10, Silent Clubstep. This is one of the most historic levels in the game, and seeing it finally verified is mind-blowing, but the fact that there are 3 levels harder than it is even more insane. However, the historic value of the level doesn't stop it from being one of the worst things ever created. Visually, the level is a mess. There is no coherence between parts, decoration is very empty and messy, colours don't work well together. There really are few merits of this level. I'm so disappointed that RealVet's version of the level wasn't verified, because that took Silent Clubstep and gave it the intensity it deserved for such a difficult level. That level might still have some hope though, as it could still be verified as the true unnerfed Silent Clubstep, so I'll be holding out for that. Silent Clubstep does have some creative gameplay elements. I'm a particular fan of the duel and the dropship. The duel has some interesting ideas, being very simple, yet also very hard and daunting, and has a cool click pattern, and the dropship has some cool fakes. However, a lot of the gameplay is standard old impossible level. Straight fly, invisible maze, difficult timings, you get the idea. Paco and Zoink are the only people who have beaten this level, so I have few ratings to go on for how fun the level is. Zoink gave the level a 0 out of 10 for enjoyment, and on Kirst's deleted video where he supposedly used a hitbox multiplier or something, he gave the level a 0 out of 10 for enjoyment, and let's be real here, have you ever heard any sane person compliment Silent Clubstep for its gameplay? Didn't think so. I give Silent Clubstep a documentary YouTubers are the only people who like this level out of 10. Now we move into the top 3, which seems to be changing positions faster than I can post GDDP beginner tier videos, but the current number 3 demon is Sakupin Circles. This is another hell-themed old impossible level, which is basically a brutal wave challenge with a 24-second pre-drop and 9-second chip at the end to pad out the level a bit. It was given a redecoration which presents an interesting and chaotic take on the 9 circles effect, which is to be expected from Dr. Cuba. The designs in the pre-drop are true to the original, but boring in the ball and second cube, and the whole thing is carried by glow. The 9 circles effect in the wave differs slightly in each part, but all use lots of different types of blocks which works to create a cluttered atmosphere, highlighting the difficulty. The parts do all fit together well too. The gameplay could clearly be improved though. As an old impossible level, the balancing is shockingly bad, and the gameplay is very boring. The wave part is literally just tight corridors, spam and memory. It's one of the laziest things I've ever seen. A bit more variation would have been nice. The average enjoyment for the level is 4.2, and I'm surprised it isn't lower, but I could only find 5 records with real ratings. If I counted Space's rating as a 0, the average would have been much lower. I give Sakupin Circles a 0 out of 10. It doesn't even deserve one of my terrible jokes, it's literally too bad. At number 2, we have Abyss of Darkness, the level we all thought would dethrone Tartarus, but took an extra 6 months to get verified. Then we all thought it would dethrone Slaughterhouse, and it did, briefly. AOD has some of the weirdest gameplay I've ever seen, but at least it actually uses difficulty from multiple game modes. Half of the level is the pre-drop, which is fine, but it really doesn't need to be. The redecoration stays true to the original while putting a modern spin on things. AOD would be a really good top 1 in my opinion, because although the parts don't fit very well together in terms of decoration, the song mixed with the challenge-like gameplay and the length of the level all help to build a good sense of finality, which I think top 1s should have. There is a lot of variation between parts, which keeps the level interesting, but they don't really work together that well, and the parts don't build upon each other, which is a shame because the song really offers an opportunity for that. A wider variety of designs within some of the parts would have made this level stand out more. Also, it's called Abyss of Darkness, so why is the part right before the drop like 10 times brighter than all the others? The bright pulses in darker parts work better at keeping the level alive without breaking the theme. The level is interesting to watch because of the unique gameplay. I couldn't find a single real enjoyment rating from anyone, even non-victors, but Space said that the base gameplay was amazing. However, he also put his enjoyment rating as no, so I really don't know what to think of the level. Overall, I give AOD a rip deals thick out of 10. Finally, we have Slaughterhouse, the current top 1 on the demon list, although this is a debated topic, and with Acheron recently verified by Zoink, its reign will most likely be over, for real this time, soon. Slaughterhouse also has some good top 1 attributes, but I still think AOD was a cooler top 1. Slaughterhouse's main selling point for me is the super intense atmosphere, rivaled by no other level. The song mixed with the straightforward, brutally hard gameplay and flashy decoration in the second half make for a viewing experience where even newer players to GD or people who don't even play the game can tell that the level is really hard. The decoration gets progressively better, with Ice Cave's parts being very boring as they all look the same. The simplicity of his decoration works well in the pre-drop, but doesn't work so well when the drop hits, as the decoration would work better with more detailed blocks and more intense pulses there. Thankfully, he recognised this and made the level a collab. River's part is better, still using a lot of black structures, but with more intense red glow and slightly better designs. Then from here, the blocks get progressively more intense and flashier throughout the level until the drop ends. The ending calms down a bit with more peaceful movements, which fits the song. This level's decoration is by no means perfect, and it may not look the best, but the progression is very well executed. I think some pulses of different colours like orange or yellow could have helped some parts out, as well as a revamp of some of Ice Cave's later parts as they get a bit stale, perhaps adding some more advanced structures and blocks. The gameplay is very boring in my opinion, with most of the level being fleshed out by Straight Fly and Super Tight Wave, although the wave is more interesting than something like Circumference Circles. There are only 2 victors of the level with an enjoyment rating, and the average is 1.5. This goes to show that the level isn't very fun like most of the top 5s. I'm going to give Slaughterhouse a how the hell can people actually beat this out of 10. And that brings us to the end of the top 10. If we total up all the enjoyment ratings from the whole of the top 10, the average enjoyment for a top 10 level is something around 4 depending on how you calculate it. Although this isn't good at all, it's honestly higher than I expected. But now onto how I think we should fix the top 10. Number 1. Creators should make sure gameplay on their extremes is fun. This seems really obvious. Why would you want people to have a bad time with your level? But when less experienced players make hard gameplay, it can often be less fun as they aren't good enough to actually play it. This can be done by getting a lot of playtesters who are good enough to make progress on the level and listening to feedback. Number 2. Stop verifying old impossible levels. In an ideal world, the top of the demon list would be filled with original new levels with a variety of themes and ideas, but even if people do decide to go and verify old impossible levels, they should at least bug fix them or improve the gameplay in my opinion. If the effort can be put in to redecorate an old impossible level, then there's no reason not to change the gameplay to make it more fun along the way. And finally, difficulty isn't everything. If the level you've built would play better as a top 30 or an extended list level, then 9 times out of 10 you should go with that. People will like your level more and it will be more accessible to more players. Buffing a level unnecessarily or badly can result in a much worse playing experience, as we've seen with levels like Sonic Wave Infinity. The last thing I want to do in this video is give you my ranking for the top 10. I think the worst top 10 is Circumference Circles. It's boring and unoriginal in pretty much every way, not to mention terribly balanced. At number 9 we have Silent Clubstep. I would have put this below Circumference Circles if it wasn't for the history and personality this level has. Its gameplay and balancing are equally bad, but at least Silent Clubstep has some original ideas. At number 8 we have Sonic Wave Infinity. Pretty much nobody enjoys playing this level, but it does have some very good decoration and a cool end screen I guess. At number 7 we have Arcturus. Pretty much everyone says this level sucks, and I can see why, but even this has more personality than Circumference Circles and SWI. At number 6 we have Slaughterhouse. It has a great atmosphere but seems terrible to play, but what can you expect from an old impossible level? They're generally made for a viewing experience, for people to watch the level and think, wow that looks really hard, not to actually be played. Moving on we have Abyss of Darkness taking the number 5 spot. This also seems like it was made to be watched rather than played, but it has a few more merits than Slaughterhouse in my opinion, mainly the originality of the gameplay. At number 4 I've chosen Tartarus. A decent amount of people actually enjoy playing this level, and it has some cool theming and personality. At number 3 is Hard Machine. I'm not a huge fan of the level, but I have to recognise that most of the victors think the level is fun except for a few choke points. The decoration has aged pretty well, but it's still a bit outdated. At number 2 we have Oblivion. I still think the level is boring and too similar to Cognition, but it does look very fun and a refreshing break from the usual type of gameplay found in the top 10. With a few tweaks, I could really like this level, and I think it might grow on me in future. And at number 1, we have Firework. It's an original level, and people actually find it fun, which is especially impressive as it's a top 5. There is a reason why so many people jump to Firework and not other levels placed around it. It's because the level has real gameplay that's actually fair and not from an old impossible level. So that's all I really have to say. This video has been way longer than I wanted it to be, but I had a lot to say on this topic. I hope I said at least some things that you agree with, and if not, you probably love old impossible levels too much, and I wish you a speedy recovery from this terrible disease. But if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and consider leaving a like or subscribing. I'm going to try to make more videos like this in future if people like them, or even if they don't, because I find them fun to make. But with that said, see you all next time. Bye.